Champagne, sparkling wine, Asti Spumante, Brut, cold duck. Are you confused by what to buy for your celebration? Well, join us today while we have a champagne toast for our 100th episode and learn all about champagne and sparkling wines. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Let's Celebrate TV. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Let's Celebrate TV. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Let's Celebrate TV. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Let's Celebrate TV. I'm your host, Peter Lee. But you know what? Is the tape stuck? Because I think you've heard that a few times already. In fact, you've heard that 99 times. So let me start over. Hi everyone, welcome to the 100th episode of Let's Celebrate TV. I'm your host, Peter Lee. On this channel, we teach you all about celebrating. We share recipes for food, hors d'oeuvres, cocktails, and we share entertaining tips too. Now we try and keep everything as simple as possible, especially for those of you out there who say that you just can't cook or entertain, because we know that you really can. So if you like this episode, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and watch a new episode every single week. Today, our celebration is all about celebrating. And what better way to start a celebration than with some champagne? So let's learn all about champagnes today. Let's get started. I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. Let me tell you a little bit about champagne. Now, champagne is a sparkling wine. All champagnes are sparkling wine, but not all sparkling wines are champagne. So what does that mean? In order to be called champagne, it must be produced in the Champagne region of France. Other than that, it's a sparkling wine. Now, a lot of countries produce sparkling wines and they have some different names. For example, in Germany, it's called Sekt, S-E-K-T. In Spain, it's called Cava. Italy, there's Prosecco, Asti, Lambrusco. Now I know my Jersey peeps know about Asti Spumante and Lambrusco. That I know. In Portugal, it's called Espumante. Most of the world, and here in America, it's called sparkling wine. But you know what? They're all delicious, delicious wines. So what do they make them from? Well, there's three types of main grapes that most of them are made from. Now, some wineries will be different. They'll use different types of grapes. But for the most part, it's Pinot Noir or Chardonnay or one called a Pinot Meunier. Now, like I said, a lot of different wineries will mix in different grapes depending on what they can get and for the level of sweetness that they want to attain. So that's about the grapes and what do you call them. Now, there's two important types of champagne or sparkling wine. There's vintage. Now, vintage will have a year on the label. I don't have any vintage wines here because they're a little more expensive, but usually the year would be down here. What that signifies to you is that that's the year that the grapes were harvested and that's the year it was bottled, and then it's aged from there. Most sparkling wines are non-vintage. That doesn't mean that they're any less quality, that vintage is better or anything. It just means that they are more of a blend of grapes from whatever the winery could get. Now, what does that mean? That means that the winery can produce a consistent product year after year after year. So your favorite little from La Marca is going to produce the same wine every single year, and it'll be exactly the same. So wines, champagnes, like any other wine, go from dry, super, super dry, to super sweet. And there are 6 different varieties. There's extra brut, which is super, super dry. Then there's brut. That's what I have here. I have a couple of bruts, like this one. This is dry. This is what we drink here at LG Manor. Then you start getting sweeter. So it's extra brut, brut, then extra dry. You would think that would be the driest, but not in sparkling wines. A little confusing. From there you go to sec, S-E-C, then demi-sec, and then adieu, like French for two. I have a few wines here. I have a couple of Brutes. Sometimes the same winery will produce more than one level of sweetness. So I have here a Brut. This is a dry wine. Then I have their semi-sweet, which would be a demi-sec or even a sec. So there's some wines, here's some champagnes, that's all the sweetness. So you go out and you buy this stuff, you need to cool it and store it. What do? Okay, first thing, don't ever, under any circumstances, put these bottles in the freezer. What's gonna happen? Well, first of all, it's gonna kill the flavor. That's why you don't store tomatoes in the fridge because it deadens the flavor and they taste like nothing. That's what it's gonna do to these little precious bubbles in this wine. The other thing is, this is all under high pressure, and it's very easy to just forget about it, and then the bottle explodes in your freezer and you have a mess. And this is the voice of experience telling you that. I made that mistake once when I was in college. Never again. So you cool it in the fridge. You can keep it in the fridge for about 3 hours before you want to serve it. Or you could put it in an ice bucket with water and ice for about 30 minutes before you want to serve it. Now you want to then let it come back up to room temperature, but not get too warm. So drink it out of the fridge is the safest thing to do. Now if you're going to store this, store it in a cool place, upright. A lot of wines you want to tip down so the cork stays moist, but not with champagne or sparkling wines because it's under such high pressure. So this is going to help alleviate that pressure. Just keep it upright. That's all about the wines and the storing it. Now, what do you drink wine out of? Glasses. So let's talk about it. I have a selection of glasses here. They're kind of interesting. This first one is called coupe. Now, these were big in the 30s and 40s and actually all the way up into the late 60s. This is one of my favorites. Now, the great thing about this glass, it's very wide and shallow. So when you drink from it, you get all those bubbles tickling your nose. And a lot of the flavor of sparkling wines comes from those bubbles. They get up into your nose and the aroma gets there, and that helps with the flavor. The downside with this is this big area, the wine gets warm and then it goes flat really quickly. So these are really falling out of flavor. Let's get rid of that one. Next, I have some Flutes. These started out in the 70s and 80s. The big thing about these is they're narrow and tall, so the bubbles stay contained and they just rise up in the center. Now, it keeps the bubbles in longer, but when you drink, you're not getting that experience of the bubbles hitting your nose and that aroma, or what they call the nose of the wine. Why they're popular is because for big events like weddings and receptions and things, it's a much smaller portion than say in a coupe or some other glass. So that's one of the reasons they're popular. They are fun though. Now all the experts all over the place say a tulip-shaped glass is the best bet. Now this is just a generic wine glass, white wine glass actually. So down here in the bottom, you get a nice portion of champagne. You're of course not going to fill it all the way up, but you get a nice portion. You get some extra surface area down there so the bubbles will break through and rise up. But then as it narrows at the top, it constricts them, so it's not all going to evaporate really quickly and get flat. What you get when you drink is you'll get that experience of the bubbles going over your nose. Like that. So you get the flavor of the wine, you get the nose of the wine, you get the whole experience. So this is what the quote experts say is the best wine glass to use. That's a lot of information fast. But now it's time for our favorite part. We're going to have a tasting next. So give me a moment and I'm going to clear this all away and then we're going to taste. Alrighty, we are ready to do a tasting. But first, let's talk about glasses again, one more quick trip. These are a little different than what I showed you. These are trumpet shaped. And these are very special tasting flutes that our friend Christine Hagen gave us when we got married many years ago. you notice that they're narrow at the bottom and then they flare out like a trumpet. And what that does is it gets the little bubbles in the bottom like a flute, but then you have this little wider area like on the regular wine glass. So you get the best of both worlds. You get the bubbles coming up from the center, and then you get the experience of the bubbles hitting your nose, and you get the flavor and the aroma all at once. So these are special ones. Now we have our favorite champagne. This is real champagne from France, Moet Chandon. This is a Brut, which is what we like to drink. So we're going to open this, and I'm going to open it for you on camera. Hopefully I won't screw it up. So let's talk about opening. What don't you want to do? Well, you don't want to shake it up. I know on TV, again, they show people shaking it up and the cork flies out and they spray everyone in the room. Well, that's dangerous because the cork is going to take someone's eye out, and it's a terrible waste of champagne. The other thing you see on TV is when the chefs do a big saber, they take a big sword and they just chop the bottle off. Again, the champagne goes everywhere. Now you've got glass in your wine. You really can't drink it, so why bother? So let's just open this. Now it's pretty easy to do, but there is a technique. So we're going to take the foil off pretty quickly. Hopefully quickly. Underneath this foil, you see, is a cage around the cork. Now there's usually this little tab. You want to bend that down. You want to keep your hand on this because this is under pressure. You just want to untwist it. Takes just a few times. You can take that off or you can leave it on. I'm going to leave this on. I'm going to hold the cork and the bottle. I'm going to twist the bottle. Now you don't want a great big pop. And just to be safe, I'm going to hold it away from myself. So if I do this right, boop, that's all you want. No mess, no fuss, and here's the cork safely in my hand, not shot across the room. So let's pour this. Now on the bottom, there's a dimple. You see waiters in restaurants holding it with one hand pouring. I'm not quite so talented. I'm going to use two hands. I'm going to hold it a little differently. But you want to pour on an angle, kind of like you do with a beer, because you don't want all foam. You want wine. You want your champagne in the glass. You don't want to fill this all the way up. I know you're tempted, but don't do it, because that is going to just help the champagne go flat that much faster. Just like that. Pour it slowly. You can always top it off a little bit, but just pour it right down the side of the glass. See that? About 3/4 of the way is a good place to pour to. All right. Now, I've got this lovely champagne, my favorite. I have to taste it, don't I?
No, you don't. You can't taste champagne for the 100th episode without saying thank you to the producer, the director, the videographer, the camera. Oh, wait, that's me.
And my husband. Cheers. That's good stuff.
I'm taking the cork with me.
This is my favorite champagne. It's on the drier side. It's bright, it's crisp, it's refreshing. And now the proper glass, you get those bubbles hitting your nose, you get the aroma and the flavor. Delicious. Delicious with a meal, before a meal, for dessert, any old time. So that's all about champagne. Now, as always, we're going to have all these notes and instructions up in the comment section on YouTube, and we'll post them on Facebook too. And guess what? You can follow us on Twitter at Let's Celebrate TV. So send us pictures, keep sending us questions and comments. We love them. We love hearing from you. And we always answer every single one. So we will see you again next Tuesday at 7 p.m. because, as always, you're all invited to come on over, come on in, and let's celebrate. Cheers.